Not one, not two, not three, but 10 interview questions that managers will ask you in clinical research. Coming right up after the intro. Hey guys, ECRG here, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about 10 interview questions you can guarantee that hiring managers will ask you during the interview process. At some point during the interview process, you will get asked all 10 or at least most of these 10 questions. So if you are interested in improving your chances of getting that job after the interview, sign up for one of our interview prep time slots. How you sign up is you email me at eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com and tell me you're interested in some interview prep. We're going to hammer home some questions, both behavioral and clinical questions that you can be sure that you'll be asked. These will be high yield questions. And if you're asked, you'll be able to knock them out the park. So email me, eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com. We'll do 30 minutes of questions, and then we'll follow it up with 30 minutes of how you responded. We've got all these different options for you. We can send you a recording of how you did and all this other stuff. So if you're interested, email me, eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com. So what's the first question that you're going to be asked? And these are, of course, in no particular order here. But one of the most important questions you're going to be asked is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And this is a question that they're wanting to see, okay, do you have a 5-year plan? Do you have a 5-year plan at this company? Or like, what is your goals? Are they reasonable for you to achieve in this career path? Do you know what you're talking about in this career path? So that's one of the questions you're going to be asked. And this is a time for you to really be honest and specific about what your future goals are. So this is not a time where you want to say, okay, I want to work at this company for a year, then bounce to a different company for a year. No. You don't want to respond like that. You want to talk about, you see yourself growing at this company and talk about some of the career progressions that can happen within that 5 years and really make it come off as genuine and honest as possible. So that's one of the questions you're going to get asked. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then here's a pretty much classic question you're going to be asked. The next one is, tell me about a challenge or conflict you faced and how you've dealt with it. Now, this is a question that they want to see how you work when there's adversity on the line. How do you work in a stressful situation? So this is one of those ones where you want to have one of your stories prepared for this, or like a generic story that can be used for multiple different questions. But a time there was some adversity and how you overcame it. That's one of the other questions. So here's another one that you could be asked. What is your greatest professional achievement? And this is really an opportunity for you to brag on yourself and talk about how great you were in some situations, some positive aspects about you, and really brag about yourself. This is a good time to talk about those numbers. I know we've talked about those before on the resume, if you listen to some of the resume videos. But if you've got some specific numbers or specific data about how you helped out a client, or how you helped the company make more money, or how you helped them save a little bit more money, this is a great opportunity to talk about that and to kind of sneak this into your professional achievements, so they know you're not afraid, A, to kind of brag about yourself, and B, that you have had success in your previous roles. So here's one. I hate getting asked this question. I think it's a really, really lame question, but it's a common one, and you're probably going to get asked it. So what do you consider to be your weaknesses? What is your greatest weakness? And I hate this question because it's so lame. I feel like a lot of people, in response to this question, they say something that's not really a weakness, but it's like a backhanded compliment of themselves. Like, sometimes I'm too much of a perfectionist. That's the classic one. Don't say that, guys. Come up with an actual weakness here, and then you can talk about how you've worked really hard to correct that weakness. So one of my weaknesses was taking meeting minutes. I was terrible at it in the beginning, but I ended up taking a course through the company I was working for. They had courses on this, and I ended up getting better at them, and I ended up working with the project manager, and they would always provide feedback, and I ended up gradually getting better and better at it through that way. So, think about something like that, something you hate doing, something that you know you're bad at, and come up with some ways that you got better with it. So that's one. And then obviously the flip of that, what are some of your strengths is another question you're most likely going to get asked. So if you get asked one of them, you can be rest assured you're going to be asked the other one. So what are your greatest strengths? You should have a lot of these. And you just pick one, essentially. Pick one of your strengths. Talk about how you've developed it. Talk about why it's one of your strengths, and then you should have something to back it up. Maybe like a certificate honoring that. Maybe like some feedback one of your managers gave you on that. Don't just say a random strength. You want to have something to kind of back it up, add a little bit more oomph to it. So that's one. Next one is, why should the company hire you? Why should we hire you? And some of these are difficult to answer. I feel like the weakness one is kind of difficult to answer, but there should be many reasons why they hire you. I always like to talk about why I'm the best fit for the role. So if it's a CRA role, I'm going to talk about how I've monitored in the past. I'm going to talk about how many sites I've monitored before. I'm going to talk about how passionate I am about monitoring. I'm going to talk about how, I love traveling all over the country. I'm going to talk about how I love study coordinators and interacting with PIs. I'm going to say all that stuff. And this is really a good opportunity to sell yourself if they ask you that. And that's really what they're looking for. They're lobbing you one right there, and you're supposed to hit it out the park. So take that and do your best with that. But that's one where you should be able to hit that one out the park. And then here's another one that they may ask you: why do you want this job? And once again, that's another one you should be able to hit out the park. That's a softball. You want to talk about, you can use the same kind of logic. Talk about your past experience, why you're a great fit for that job, and that can kind of parlay you into why you want that job also. So why do you want that job? That's another question. Then here's the one you can be sure they're going to ask you about: what do you know about the company? How did you hear about the company? And one of my favorite ways to talk about this is if you have a referral. Maybe you had a friend that worked at the company, and that's a great thing to talk about. Maybe you had a friend who really enjoyed working for the company, who maybe got in there as an entry-level person and kind of worked their way up through the ranks. And you've been friends with them. They highly recommend the company. And then you can talk about some other things too. This is a great opportunity. They're going to ask you about this, and so this should be in your prep work beforehand. You can go on Glassdoor. You can go on their website, talk about some of the things that really stand out to you with that company. So that's a great opportunity for you also. Then the second to last one, the ninth question that you can be sure they're going to ask you is, how did you hear about this position? And like I said before, this is a great opportunity for you also. If you had a referral, you want to tie that in also. Talk about how that person recommended you for the position, and they recommend that company also. So that's a good opportunity for you to plug that in also. And then the last, and probably one of the most common ones for anyone to kind of open an interview for you, is, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? And this one stumps up a lot of people too, but everyone typically asks this question, and this is an opportunity for you to provide a brief few sentence background on how you kind of came up in the industry, where you came from. Maybe if they're entry level, you want to talk about college, a little bit of the experience you have. This is nothing you want to belabor, but just highlights from your past career over the past 5 to 10 years, just high level highlights. And you don't want to give too many details here, but you definitely want to provide some nuggets for them to piggyback off of and be like, oh, that's interesting. And then they're going to talk to you kind of about that also. This is a great opportunity. If you can lace some nuggets into that, you can kind of get them off topic of their normal question set. Because I'm not going to lie, I hate interviews where they just ask those normal standard questions. I like people that maybe they have a few questions down, and then they kind of go after some of the interesting things you say and want to learn about that. So that shows that the interview is going well if you can get them off of their normal standard question set that they're talking about. When they are actually showing interest in some of the things you say, that's a good sign. So lace some nuggets in there with the can you tell me about yourself. And, it's a good opportunity for you to talk about some of your past experience and why you're a great fit for this new role. Great opportunity. So, those are some very, very common 10 questions you can be sure they're going to ask you. And we haven't even gotten to the clinical questions yet. So we're going to do another video on the 10 clinical research questions that they may ask you during the interview. And, some of those may be behavioral, some of those may be actual clinical questions. So we're going to go over them in another video. And this all comes from a place because for very early on in my career, I was applying for it was a project coordinator position with a CRO. I'm not going to name the name, but they asked me about essential documents. And at the time I'd only had like a month or 2 months of experience. And so I kind of knew what the documents were. Like I knew financial disclosure form, I knew 1572, I knew, GCP training, I knew medical license, CV. I knew those documents. But when they said the term essential documents or regulatory documents, I let that trip me up. And I was like, And so they had to kind of start me. They were like, oh, you like GCP. And, I know that kind of ruined the interview because they're like, this person doesn't have enough experience to get this position. But, it just takes time to kind of get familiar with some of the documents and terminology and questions they may ask. But I mean, that's a low ball. You got to know what the essential documents are. And so in that next video, we are going to talk about some of those low ball questions that they could ask you to really separate, people that know nothing about clinical research or at least have a little bit of knowledge about clinical research. So hopefully this video was great for you. Some of the questions are for sure going to be asked, and hopefully this gave you an idea of those and how you can prepare your answers for those a little bit. So as always, guys, like this video, share it, hit that bell next to the subscribe button. Email us eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com for any inquiries you may have. Take care.